Good. Test 2 is on October 1st. The reason why I did that, first of all, so you get you another test on your belt, but also because that's the day of midterms, as far as being turned in. So I'd like to get you another test. Right now, some of you guys need one more test to help that midterm grade, so we're gonna do that on that day. I think that is 2 weeks from tomorrow, is that right? Brain and thought process. 2 weeks from tomorrow is your next test. Have that idea what's coming up. Before we get into the new stuff, who wants to take a shot at that? That way you should know.
I ain't look at it for real. I know, dang, I didn't look at it. Length go on the bottom?
Force is on the left, on the,
Length go on the bottom under that.
on the x-axis, axis, and then length is on the y.
Yeah.
And you gonna start short.
Ideal,
Ideal is where?
in the middle,
And then
and long is at the end. And the peak should be in the middle at ideal.
So how's it gonna look?
It should look like
Start
upside
short,
down
go
U.
all the way up to the max.
You, that's something great.
Put the dots at the top.
Top to the top, what's that part?
That's the max.
Maximum.
Max. So max and ideal should kind of, I didn't put dots, actually, don't do that, I should go though. I didn't put it the other day. But max and ideal should basically line up on the top. We have ideal length, we should be able to produce the maximum amount of tension within our muscles as we start talking about whole idea. Remember, we talked about that's gonna be one of your test questions. So you guys just kind of talk me
Just like
through
that?
it.
How you just did
Just
that?
like that.
Alright, bet.
Now you guys talk me through it, make sure you guys can draw it and repeat what I just did.
Alright, bet.
Alright, good?
And that's gonna be the question right there, length, tension graph?
Yep. Draw for me the length tension graph. As it
And
relates
the
to
max,
muscle force.
that's maximum tension. Or that's maximum strength.
That's just regular graph.
For ideal,
Yeah, for ideal, that max line is max.
that's the
force.
maximum amount of force that you can
Max
produce
force.
throughout the course of that lift. And so we talked about that before, usually that's right towards the middle of any lift.
Right,
So if I grab 85-pound dumbbells over DJR, down here sucks because I'm too long.
right.
Right there in the middle, I feel pretty strong because I'm ideal.
Right, and
And as I get up here, I get too short, it still starts sucking in because everything's kind of overlapped. Remember that this thing is a result of the number of connections between myosin and actin. Remember the other day, you guys hated my physiology flashback. But the number of connections between myosin and actin is what's affecting this. Not enough connections out here, the right amount of connections in the middle,
Too many.
all, too many or just all jumbled up connections way at the top here and everything kind of gets in this way. We've all felt that with the bench press before too. We first start lowering it down, and ain't feeling too great, and we're kind of in the, well, we go the other way. Down here, it ain't too great, down here, we're too short, then we get up in here, get out of the idea, and everything gets long at this part, that's why everything is always felt in the middle of our lift, we feel the strongest, technically from whatever we're doing. Right? That's because of the number of connections. So that's that graph. And I warned you guys on Monday, now there's gonna be multiple graphs on this test. Here comes the next one. Force velocity graph. Now, as you're writing that down, come here, as we start talking about force velocity, you gotta go back to a few things we said before in this class. We talked about muscle contractions. We talked about what happens inside the muscle. These three things are something we've talked about before. Things we need to know for your test. Yep.
I had a question about that.
Yeah.
So when we said concentric and eccentric transactions, when you said build up of tension was eccentric, I thought eccentric was when you fully extend.
Eccentric is any, what do you have, you know, so what is eccentric? I'll write it down right here and we'll talk about it. What does your eccentric say?
Eccentric, muscle lengthening with gravity. And then concentric was muscle shortening against gravity.
So this one is shortening.
So if it's shortening, shouldn't that be building up the tension instead of lengthening?
That's a great question, and that's why I want to do this right now. You'll see it here in a second. You're right, in our brains we're thinking that this is really going to production of force. But think about if I have that, so I do a squat on my way down, and when I'm doing my squat, on the way down, if I have 315 on my back, and I don't produce any kind of force at all, am I going to be able to control that weight on the way down? Like if I don't produce any force, right, I'll just straight drop. So some type of tension has to be built up as we lower down, otherwise we're just going to straight up drop it. If I'm holding those 85-pound dumbbells up here again, and I don't produce any force, I just let them go and just go like that, now all the force is off of my biceps, but I haven't controlled the weight at all. Remember, I think that's the other word I put in, did I put controlling in there for your thing?
Where controlling the weight,
Controlling the
yeah.
weight,
Yeah, controlling the weight is when we think about for eccentric, and that's where the force component comes from. We have to be able to control the weight. We take the 225 off the bench press rack, and we lower it down, that's eccentric, so I'm going with gravity. I have to produce force and tension in order to lower down, if not, I'll drop straight on my chest and break my chest. Right. That makes sense? Did that answer your question a little bit? And remember we talked about that's like a negative, this was a positive, this was the moving of the weight.
We put bigger in size.
Is that what I said?
Yes.
I think we had a whole, I gave you a few different things from that standpoint, I just wanna write a few things up there. You had that stuff somewhere in your notes. We got a flashback, a little bit way back, kind of, when we talked about isometric, who remembers what that one was?
But how you do bigger in size on that one? Moving, but under my notes it say against gravity. But you just got it up there with gravity.
Oh, that's, you actually are right, it's my fault, I wrote gravity twice.
Alright.
My fault. I don't have enough room, but, yeah, for the case study.
Against-
So against gravity, right? Eccentric going with it, constantly just pushing against it, or going, whatever, doing a pull-up, or going against gravity, so on the way up of a pull-up is concentric. On the way back down, you're doing eccentric, because you're going with gravity. Okay,
So a bench press concentric will be going up.
going up, pushing against gravity, so all that weight you have is pushing against gravity. Y'all know what gravity is, right?
Yeah.
From class, we all know what gravity is. We'll start talking more about gravity as it relates to running and jumping in a couple of weeks and get back into that kind of stuff. What was this last one? What is isometric?
Muscle contraction with no joint movement.
So you guys kind of remember that? It's not a very good J, you guys know what he said. We're gonna remember these three things as I start drawing this graph, because all three of these things are gonna be on this graph. Right. So the next one, force velocity graph. We're just gonna kind of draw it first, looking like an upside down T. So you guys work on this one on your test, draw the upside down T first. So this one doesn't have an X and a Y, kind of like the length tension one, that's kind of a way to differentiate or those differences. This one is an upside down T. Okay? Right in the middle is where your force is at. So this line represents force in this graph. And on the whole bottom, so this line, let's write that in different spots so we can confuse. You can leave it on the bottom if you want to write it that way. I'm just trying right now as we talk about it. Force is here, let me put it up here. That line's force. And this whole line here on the bottom is velocity. So our force velocity curve, velocity is this entire line, and force is on the top. Okay? Right in the middle would be your zero, no velocity. We have no velocity, we are doing an isometric contraction. The muscles contract, myosin and actin grab onto each other, but they don't go fast or slow, they just grab on it and they stay there. If I did a wall sit right now, I'm kind of leaning against the wall, doing a wall sit, my quads are doing an isometric contraction, I'm not going anywhere, you guys see that in your brains, right? I'm not going up, I'm not going down, they're staying right there in that one spot, there is no velocity. That, we just find a spot kind of right towards the middle here, and we're gonna write isometric. Today we're just gonna kind of show the graph, talk a little bit about it, we'll talk more about the graph tomorrow. Right now it's gonna kind of have our graph today. So isometric, you're right in the middle. So now, think about the right-hand side of the graph first. As velocity increases, as velocity gets faster, force is gonna go from high, I'm gonna draw the force in the dotted line, there's so many things going on. Force will go here, down to there. And we can think about that. Our maximum weight, so we go back to bench pressing again. I put 315 on the bar to bench press it. How fast can I move 315 if that's my max weight?
Fast.
You can move 315 fast if it's your max weight?
You're gonna move it
Oh,
slow.
if it's your max weight.
It's gonna move slow. You still could probably finish it because that's your maximum weight, but you're gonna be looking like this going all the way up. A lot of force, not very much velocity. Right, makes sense? Now, let's flip that around. I put 135 on the bar, and I max 315. How fast am I moving that? Throwing it up there. Lots of velocity, not too much force though, in order to move the 135. We're going to use this part of the graph a lot more to talk about how we get stronger and training wise. That's really important. We're going to show the other side here in a second. But that's very important what happens there from a force standpoint. This side of the graph is the concentric side. So when you're making your graph, and I give you this question on your test, and this one definitely will be on your test too, just like this one will be. You're gonna write concentric over here. When we go back up here, I said this graph is the number of connections. Right now, we're talking about the rate of connections. Or how fast. Okay, don't put that on, when you draw your graphs, don't put that, but I just want you to kind of think about that, or put it in your notes somewhere. But we're talking right now about how fast those myosin and actin can grab onto each other. So, from a concentric standpoint, and the easiest way to kind of do that is put it in a little box when you're making your arts and crafts. All this is happening because of cycling rate. As I go farther out and try to go faster, actin and myosin are going as fast as they can to try to grab on to stuff. But in order to grab on, they have to let go. And whenever they do that, it's less force being able to produce. I can't move 315 if I'm constantly letting go and grabbing on and trying to move really fast. Okay, make sense? Yes, sir. So this side is concentric, where do you think I'm going? This side over here is going to be eccentric, that's 2C. We still will think about it, velocity is going to increase, it's going to be negative velocity, but if I'm up here, do my arm curls again, and I go down really fast, I'm technically creating more force going down because of one reason we'll talk about a little more tomorrow. But the faster I go this way, the more force is created on the way down. So this curve actually stays up here pretty high, but kind of looks like that. So it's kind of like a crazy, this looks normal, this one starts going, I'm going to change that. If you already started writing, I apologize. It goes up first, and then it just kind of plateaus itself out. There's going to be an up portion here first, and it's going to kind of level itself out based off of that velocity. Cycling rate's the reason here. This is because of the elastic, let's just say elastic rate. I was going to put a different word, but keep it the same. If we know what's going on one side or the other, we should be able to make connections. Concentric C, concentric cycling rate. Eccentric E, eccentric elastic rate. But as we lift, this force velocity, or as we train, or as we do stuff, this force velocity graph is what allows us to become more explosive, jump higher, run faster. We're going to utilize this a lot, especially on this right-hand side. This side over here, I want to say I'm actually right. This side over here more is a representation of increasing your muscle size. If you want to get bigger, you should spend a lot of your training time over here. Allowing yourself to produce force at a faster rate will allow your muscles to actually get bigger. But it doesn't necessarily help you from this side of it, because this is always going to be a component of something else we'll talk about. But all you want to do is get bigger. This is where you stay. Do a lot of these kind of reps. A lot of those negative reps will help your muscles to get bigger, more swole up. If you want to be more of an athlete, you'll focus more on this side, which is what the rest of this class we're going to talk about. That's really what we're not trying to be bodybuilders, we're trying to be athletes in this class. So we'll spend most of our time over here. Okay. Question? Good. I'm going to leave that there because he's coming back in. He's going to be really confused.
Just to go back.
Yep, go back.
Early on when you said, the number of connections between myosin and actin.
Right, that's this one. That's the top. The length tension.
Length tension, that's what length tension is.
Right, so that's the number of actual connections. When we talked about not enough out here, the ideal amount in the middle, and then too many as we get close together, we do that cable crossover. This one, we're talking about how fast they can connect. That's really what we're trying to look at. The rate of connection. So if I'm trying to do that at 315, I'm going slow. The connections are slow, so my velocity therefore is slow, but I produce a tremendous amount of force, and I'm able to get that 315 all the way off my chest. If I was all the way down here and I tried to go as fast as I could with the 315, how successful would I be? Not very, because myosin and actin are trying to let go and grab on as fast as they can. But once you do that, that force is no longer there, and the bar's going to come back to that
So
time.
like plyometric training would be really fast.
Yes, yes. And we'll talk more about plyometric training towards the end of the semester, but yes, plyometric would kind of fall more right in the middle here. And we're going to start talking about vertical jump. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. we're saying we're looking at training, so we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. Vertical jump kind of falls right about there. When we're trained in a vertical jump aspect, we don't want to do all strength stuff, because all it's going to do is make us move a lot of force, not very fast. But at the same time, we don't want to do a lot of high speed stuff, because all it's going to help us do is move less force, even though it's really fast. We got to train ourselves in this realm here, which is, I don't want to say ideal, but it's ideal for being able to jump off the ground fast and high at the same time. What's the force component in a vertical jump? Your body weight.
Yeah.
You, essentially. So
Yeah. My belly.
I've been trying to.
Yeah, you got started, he sent a text.
Yeah.
I saw that he already got in the gear.
Okay. So from a force standpoint, and that's where we start talking about those athletes that are kind of freaks. How heavy is LeBron James?
How what?
How heavy is he, LeBron James?
280?
I gave him about 260. He was 280.
Not even 280 backs. I mean, it kind of fluctuates a little bit. I think he's playing around 260 now. But how high does it jump?
Very high.
Very high. How much force can he produce for his body weight?
A ton.
A ton, right? His training curve, we'll start talking more about it, is way over here. It's more this way. He can produce a lot more force at a faster rate before he gets off the ground compared to me or compared to you guys. So compared to somebody else that's 260, doesn't have this kind of God-given ability. And that's really what it comes down to. A lot of the stuff, vertical jump and running faster, is just more about how you're born. But we can do some certain things to train and make you better.
Yeah, the amount of quick twitch.
Fast twitch. Yeah,
I'm
quick twitch.
fast
No, you're right. Quick twitch, same thing, fast twitch, same idea. Right. So, you got that graph, you got this graph, we know that kind of stuff. I'm gonna shift over to this board, I'm gonna keep that there, I'm trying to get pictures of what we're doing. But thinking about now, thinking about these things. I had it written over there, I was gonna make sure we get it in our notes, but how fast we make connections between myosin and actin equals force and velocity. Alright, so these examples, you don't necessarily have to write it unless you think it helps you a little bit. Can he see me on that if I'm over here? Is that been okay when I've been doing that?
Now
Yeah,
you
he's-
got
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you can.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's better like that.
So the examples don't necessarily have to write them. I can ask you the examples on the test, but it helps you to kind of think about this graph. So if you want to kind of get them in there, just we can talk about them. Throwing a baseball versus throwing a softball. Which one of these two weighs more? Softball definitely weighs more. It's a bigger ball and also has a little more weight and more mass to it than the baseball. Looking at our graph, and the only thing on right there is the actual concentric part. So we're going to stay on the right hand side of our graph. Where does the baseball fall on that right hand side of the graph? How fast you got? I'm trying to throw it as fast as I can. My velocity is going to be up, right? Do I need as much force as I would need with the softball?
No.
So if I'm kind of here, that's kind of the max, and we kind of dash our way down here. Baseball will fall farther over towards this side, right? We all kind of in agreement there? You can throw it fast, you don't need as much force because it doesn't weigh nearly as much. So that's easy to think about now. Where does the softball go? Farther up the mix. Softball kind of goes that way because it weighs more. So you can't throw a softball as far as you can throw a
If
baseball.
you're throwing it overhand.
Even if you're throwing it overhand.
Right, but it wouldn't be if you fast pitch, underhand. But I mean, that's-
Well, the same way, we could flip flop it either way. Let's just stay on underhands because that's the way softball does things. What are the fastest pitchers doing in softball? Does anyone know the speeds? Really fast
70.
softball pitchers is around 70. Or a
Yeah.
70-mile-an-hour softball pitcher is zooming it, right? She's something pretty good.
Yeah, equivalent to 100.
If I give that girl a baseball though, in the same kind of motion, she's gonna throw it faster or slower?
Faster.
Way faster. That thing might come out of there at 90 or 100 miles an hour. The same idea, if I give the baseball guy, and a baseball guy throws 100 miles an hour with the baseball, I gave him a softball, he's still gonna throw 100 miles an hour.
No.
He will not, because of the rate of connections, will not allow him to. He will not have enough connections, get enough velocity back here to
Unless
throw
he's
that thing
playing
the same.
Kershaw.
Even he couldn't do it. I heard Jenny Finch is one of the best softball players. I gave her a baseball, she could zing that thing,
Yeah.
but she's not gonna throw the softball as fast as the baseball because it doesn't allow you for enough connections. The forces are totally different. Alright, another kind of thought process. Ping pong versus tennis. If I'm gonna hit a and we're just thinking about a forehand now, you guys all know what a forehand is in tennis? That's basically here and coming that way, I'm gonna hit a forehand like this. How fast or which one's moving faster, the ping pong or the tennis one, if I'm gonna actually hit it?
Ping pong.
The ping pong, why? What's it hitting?
Okay.
Well, the paddle's hitting that ball, but how heavy is that ball compared to a tennis ball?
Very-
Nothing really, ping pong has no weight to it at all. I'm swinging really fast, I'm staying through that ball really fast. Where would the ping pong be on my graph? Up here or over here?
At the end.
At the end this way. Once velocity increases, we start shifting our weight down that way. We are able to create less force at a much faster rate, and that's what we need for certain kind of sports. And the same thing, tennis is gonna, again, like, I'm just gonna go that way. We need more force, we can't move as fast in order to hit the tennis ball. That make sense? Yes, yes? So now, let's get to this, which we're gonna spend a lot more time talking about, well, tomorrow, but also on Friday. Jumping. You guys are, I'm good here, right? You're right. I kinda showed you where it's gonna be at on the other side over there, but right now, we're gonna kinda break it down a couple ways. Let me just draw the graph real quick. What's on, don't look over there, grab a second, don't look over there, what's on this side? Concentric or eccentric? Alright, don't cheat, so that means the eccentric has to be over here, right? What's right in the middle? Isometric, you're right, a force too, right? So you can just like, isometric is here, I'll just put iso real quick, because you got it on that side. Okay. Just kind of letting you think about the graphs, I'm not gonna draw the whole thing, we're kind of going there. When we think about jumping, we think about just doing a bunny hop. Everybody know what a bunny hop is? So I don't bend my knees at all, knees are nice and straight, and I just kind of bend up off my calf, okay? Does that require a tremendous amount of force?
No.
No. Can you do that pretty quick?
Yes.
Yes, so where did that bunny hop fall?
The bottom right.
So it'll be falling over on this side, it would be BH over that way for bunny hop, kind of falling that way. What about, one we've already talked about, the vertical jump? More force required, right? Well, why is more force required for that compared to a bunny hop?
Cause
You gotta load up more, carry your weight.
You're still grounded in the bunny hop, let me change any of that. From the standpoint of a vertical jump, what is my goal in a vertical jump, to get what?
the highest you
High.
As
can.
high as you can. You're trying to get as high as you can't, you're trying to get high in a bunny hop. Are you gonna get as high as you can in a vertical jump? You're not, because you're trying to get more force into the ground to go the other way. So this one is gonna require more force, right? We already talked about that. But it's also gonna require what? Speed to jump.
Mhm.
So if we said it kind of falls right through here, I'll just put the vertical jump up there. We'll start talking about jumping towards the end of the semester, but we'll kind of say it out loud right now. In order to jump high, you have to move fast. I'll say that one more time. In order to jump high, you have to move fast. One of the worst things you can do, I don't know if any of you guys even care about your vertical jump anymore, but we start working with your athletes. One of the worst things you can tell your athletes to do, if they're doing their vertical jump, and you'll see you do it every year whenever I watch the NFL Combine, there's guys that'll, you guys ever watch the NFL Combine? Right, they start doing, ready to do the vertical jump, they start doing the practice up, and then they'll go down real slow, and then they'll try to jump.
Oh, yeah.
That kills them. Once you start going down real slow, you've set yourself up to be more of that negative aspect, your force is gonna be way decreased.
I always notice that too, cause I be having to do that too, and I be like, so I really need to go down fast and then,
Right.
cause I be seeing when I go down like this, it always kind of stop me.
You can definitely see that too. If you go back, all that stuff's on YouTube. Just type in NFL Combine vertical jump, you can watch them. The guys that are getting off the ground and just skying and getting crazy height, you'll see them do their practice stuff and they'll go whoop, and they won't be down here very long at all. They'll go down, come straight back up, because they're trying to get their force and their velocity to match up to get them in an ideal level so they can get off the ground and get their maximum height. Right?
So technically, you said move fast, so that's like when people do long jump, kind of. 'Cause
Well, not
they're-
kind of, a lot of
Yeah,
it is, yes.
I mean, even with that going back part, before they take off, then they.
Right, and long jumps is a little bit different
Yeah.
because long jump has a forward component, which is running, and then jumping. So there's two kind of things going on there. Right now, I'm talking about going straight up off the ground. But yes, you're definitely right. As soon as they hit the what's it called?
The tarp, whatever,
What that line? As soon as they hit that line and they go, there's a tremendous amount of speed component to get them going that way. If they got to that line and they're trying to slow themselves down to try to jump, they would never go anywhere. That make any sense in my brain?
Mm-hmm.
If LeBron James went to go dunk the basketball and he's like, got it, and went, and then tried to go up, he's probably still would dunk because he's a freak, but he wouldn't get nearly as high as when he catches it, it's bang bang. Watch those NBA guys right now when they go to dunk. They're not spending a lot of time on their feet. They're getting off the feet as fast as they can in order to jump up high. So basketball players, you guys are working with basketball players in your future, and they're trying to work on their jumping skills. Teach them to get down and get off their feet as fast as they can. That's going to make them jump higher to get them into a range where as you start training that way, you'll start shifting your whole graph this way. That's what I thought about the training. That's where you want your guys and your gals to be when they start working on jumping.
Rebound and all that, yeah.
Yes. Is it in your brain just a little bit? I know we just kind of did some pictures today, we talked about it a little bit, but there's a picture in your brain. This is the harder picture. This picture's not as hard, of this graph. This one's gonna have a little more thought process of where you're gonna put stuff and start just remembering where they go. We're gonna keep practicing this one as we get closer to your test. But this is, like I said, will be another one of your questions. And I warned you ahead of time, you're gonna have 2 more graphs, you're gonna have 4 graphs total. Make sure you're separating and have an idea of which graph is which, because that's always been the problem. You guys, not you guys, people in the other classes I've taught before, they know the graphs, but they get them messed up. And they'll give me this graph for this one, and give me another one for that one. As soon as you do that, it screws up everything for your test.
I need half credit though.
Do I give you half credit?
I'm just making sure
I
you
can
know.
give you half credit, but if you wanna get the full 5 points, you gotta give me the right one for the right actual thing I'm trying to get out of you guys.
Alright, man.
Right. Tomorrow, we're gonna come back in and talk more about this, look at less pictures and more talk about it, and we'll kind of do some more examples. And then on Friday, we're gonna practice a lot of these things. You guys will be coming up here, you guys will be teaching me these things.
Bet we doing like we did last time, the little teaching thing. But
Yes, and it'll kind of count as a little bit of extra credit. So, I only say that just to get a little bit prepared for Friday, right? If you don't really care about extra credit, and I ask you to come up and show me the force velocity curve, you just wing it.
Shoot, I'm coming up.
But if you wanna come up and get a few extra credit points, have an idea of what's going where. Okay, where to label it. I might actually, because we'll see what ends up happening. I might put this up here, have you just come label a certain part of it, not the entire thing. You gotta know where everything kind of goes within the graph for this one and for the lane tension graph. We're like I said, we'll do that on Friday, not tomorrow. Get a little bit of time to get your notes and think about it, look at it.
Hey,
But have that in your brain.
how you feel about the game last night? The Lakers came back from that 3-1. I wanted that to happen though.
They
I
were real
was
good.
shocked, but then I wasn't shocked.
Yeah.
Like that, I was
Nah, I
shocked,
was-
but
See,
then
my
I
favorite
wasn't
player in the
shocked.
league besides LeBron is Jokic, and I knew he was dangerous. Like,
Crazy, won't let his ball back.
yeah.
Well, it's crazy
He
that
is
that-
a fat dude.
You see that pass behind his head?
Yeah.
When he looked?
I mean, he did.
That was
he did.
crazy to see.
If
Yeah,
that
he's
would
got
have
like
win,
a-
if that would win, that would have been like top 10 plays.
With some like centric
Oh,
opponents.
I forgot to say.
Brian.
That's a flashback.
Nah, Bron, nah, I ain't gonna lie. I love Bron too, but Bron not gonna fall like that. I hope.
Brian and 5.
I
So, I'll give him
give him 6. I give him 5
I'm
and
gonna
6.
give him 6.
It depends on how the Nuggets play. The Nuggets can't let you.
But now, what about the Heat and the Celtics?
Only way he got, first of all,
Jimmy Butler,
Celtics-
man.
I like
First
it.
of all,
I want my.
I'm about to say,
I
first of all,
want
the Celtics not gonna beat the Heat. The
Yes,
Heat's
I-
coming. The Heat's coming.
But
We're
they
playing
ain't
the Heat.
scared.
We're playing the Heat. That's what I said. We're not.
They are not
No, I said
scared.
we're playing the Heat because
Yeah.
Jason Tatum, they about to get.
Jimmy played that physical, like Jimmy
Butler's my favorite
Hold on,
player.
And I don't like how they
That's
gas.
my fault.
And I don't like how they gas that little block trying to say that was the best ever.
I know, yeah.
It was.
It was hard.
It wasn't 30 seconds, fourth quarter, we down two.
It wasn't in the
It wasn't in
finals.
fourth quarter, down two.
In the finals.
In the finals, game 7.
Yeah.
I got
one
40
block
on
on
it.
the straight
Hey, you
shoot
will
on
see a good podcast. JJ Reddit does one, and he's Jimmy Butler talking about how he like left Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It's an awesome podcast.
Then like I watched
You know I watch first take. That's the first thing I watch when I wake
got
up.
Steam Room with
It was
Tom
in their
Rocker
chat this
on.
morning.
Tom Rocker got him on podcast.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hey, come-
I
I had a question about
It's
that
like
lab.
all over again.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I record games and I just go straight.
Yeah, I want to watch the game. I'm
This
just
is
watching
right,
time
right.
of the
I
game.
go to halftime and I go play the
Identify.
game.
I like watching the game recaps on YouTube.
Yeah.
Did you put it in
I got a
the
buddy
video?
that does that.
I'm trying to
Every
see find
game.
emotions too.
And they'll,
That's what I do in the
like
morning.
15
What do you
minutes.
mean by?
That's what I do in the morning. Like, I
So
don't
we
watch
talked
the game, I
about
watch
horizontal
all the
abduction,
recaps.
abduction.
Right.
Like, oh, he did that?
I want you to, I was trying to have you see that.
Alright, man.
We'll just think about it now. I'll let you add it in there real quick. So for the shoulder press,